Hello everyone and welcome. Hello folks participating online. Welcome to our November workshop. I'm Angela Beard. I am the Director of the San Francisco Student Philanthropy here at City University. And I see a lot of friends out here in our audience as well as in the faces, so welcome. If you don't know what we call affectionately SIP is, we are a nonprofit whose mission is to support the nonprofit sector by providing free and low-cost fundraising training to working professionals. It's that simple. I've been here for just over a year, and we've covered topics anywhere from, understanding how you work with your finance team to major gifts to today we're going to talk about readiness for special or capital campaign. And so, welcome again. And without further ado, I will introduce our speakers, our fabulous guests today. And their bios are so impressive that I couldn't even cut anything out of them. I just have to share the whole thing with you. So let me, without further ado, introduce Kate Banta-Green and Barbara Maduell, who are with Breakthrough Fundraising Group. And they have 5 decades of combined experience working inside and alongside nonprofits to strengthen their communities through philanthropy. After working as colleagues for more than a decade, they founded Breakthrough Fundraising Group in 2017, which seems like it would be forever to have been in your consulting business, but it's really only been 2 years. Wow. During their careers, Kate and Barb have sat on every side of the nonprofit table, serving in the diverse roles of development director, foundation program officer, leadership gifts officer, consultant, board member. Why does this matter? I think we all know that gives them the unique view of being able to see the entire project from 30,000 feet and at the same time understand how and when work happens on the ground. And in their, is it short? In their 2-year commitment to their consulting firm, they have served already more than 75 nonprofits for development audits, major gift strategy, interim services, and campaign feasibility studies, design, and execution. They have helped their clients achieve campaign goals from $1 million to as much as $75 million, as well as raise money to sustain annual operations. So I'm going to go and learn with the rest of you. I give you Kate and Barb.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's here, and thank you to those that are going to do where we stand, everybody who's on with us on video.
Yeah. And just so you know, I think we're gonna be superheroes. We did 75 campaigns in 2 years, so that's over the span of our consulting years. So just a little clarification of that, because we do in sleep. So we decided that we really wanted to present on this topic, ready for a campaign, because we have been approached many times in the last couple of years by organizations wanting to do a feasibility study or really wanting to embark on a campaign. And when we started to ask questions and probe as to where they were in their planning process, we realized they hadn't done a lot of the pre-planning to be ready to actually start a campaign feasibility study, much less a campaign, and that there's not a lot of information on what you need to do to actually do the planning before you're ready for a campaign. So we wanted to present today to make sure that those who want the information on what you need to do to get ready for a campaign. So what we'll cover today is how campaigns, the special campaigns, capital campaigns typically unfold. There are 4 pillars to every successful campaign. We will help you understand what it is you need to do to build those pillars for your campaign, and then we'll take your questions at the end. But we also want to understand who you are, and so those who are online, feel free to put in the chat. We have wonderful Austin here who can share with us some of your information. So what we want to know is anybody, I'm going to get my notes here, in a campaign currently? Great. And anybody want to start a campaign in about a year's time? 2 to 3, yeah, about a year's time. Couple hands. 2 to 3 years or 3+ years. And then anybody thinking capital campaign, raise your hand, versus an endowment, or a program initiative or expansion. All right, and types of organizations: human service organization, arts and culture, environment, education, animal, or other. All right, youth organization should be one. There you go. There are a couple. Awesome. Anybody filling in? Anybody online want to tell us who you are?
Not a bunch right now.
Okay. All right. Great. So let me know, have you heard anybody say this? Yeah, no, we haven't either, because they're really, really hard. At the same time, they're hard, they're fun, they're exhilarating, there's lots going on through a campaign, and there's a lot of good work that comes through campaign, but it really does come through a lot of planning and a lot of hard work. And we're not the ones that said this first, but it is absolutely true that it is a marathon, not a sprint. And just like for a marathon, you don't think like, oh, I'm gonna lose a little weight and I want to get in shape, and so I'm gonna sign up for the marathon that's next week and I'm gonna get to the starting line, right? There's usually at least a year's worth of planning to even get to that point where you're ready to even start to get to the finish line. So, as for the marathon, you're working, you have your training schedule, you have your nutrition schedule, you have all these things, this time and planning that needs to happen. And all that also needs to happen in the campaign, the early planning, to make sure you're ready to start when you're on the starting block, and then to get you through to the finish line. So just know that it is absolutely a lot of planning, and it's also really fun and invigorating because people love to give to big visions and ideas.
So here's what we hear organizations say they're going to raise money for a special campaign, because they're very focused on the what initially. Here's just some examples. We're raising money because we need more square feet. We need a better location. We need different kinds of space. We need new space. We need more program space specifically. We need more administrative space. We need more parking or not. We need more programming that we need to fund through a special effort, or we need endowment or some sort of other reserve. So that's the what of what people are raising money for. But here's what you're really raising money for and why people will give to your campaign. Not the what, the bricks and mortar, but access to education, healthy bodies and minds, safe and loved animals, access to protected lands where we can experience the majesty of nature, the soaring majesty of a beautiful symphonic song. So we just want to remind you that there is the what, and donors will hear about the why. So think about it this way. Again, we didn't make this up, and we think it's just a fantastic way of shifting your thinking, that when we talk about a capital campaign, it may include capital improvements, but it really is capitalizing with the community values through your organization's mission and vision. A special fundraising campaign capitalizes the community's values through your mission and vision. And here's just some things that a great campaign can accomplish. Well, first of all, they transform organizationally, scale with your organization internally, but of course they transform the community through your programs and through the awareness building that comes through your heightened visibility in a capital campaign. They also accomplish stronger leadership, and we'll talk more about why that's the case. And board members need to hear that they may even replace themselves as new leadership emerges. Hopefully staff doesn't hear that. They also accomplish a more robust culture of philanthropy because you're interacting with your current donors in newer and deeper ways, but you're also interacting with new donors who you haven't previously known. And while we often hear a fear that a capital campaign will quote unquote, it's a terrible word, cannibalize annual giving, it often grows, again, for those same reasons. You have not only deeper relationships with more invested donors, but again, new donors emerge through the capital campaign, and all your donors are more invested in the mission. And then the flip side, here's why we see campaigns sometimes struggle. The vision, the campaign vision, literally just isn't perceived as either urgent for community needs or as your best next step organizationally. The leadership, your professional leadership and your board leadership and other volunteers just don't embrace their roles. They think that the campaign will be the responsibility of others. The goal is set not in a way that is not supported by your donor base, their capacity or their inclination to support your effort, and so it's too small or you don't know them yet. And the decision is made for the campaign to move forward with too little of investment in staffing and systems in the back of the shop. And we'll talk about that later too. But our headline is research and planning is rushed. We often go into campaigns where they say, we are going to break ground by blank, and they haven't gotten ready in a way that would ensure that they are going to break ground by blank. And here's just the framework we'll use as we now move forward with sharing in each of these areas what we think you need to be ready for before the feasibility study. We put a big block around committed and prepared leadership because we believe that they are at the heart of every single successful campaign. A compelling and urgent case for support, a big enough pool of donors who are ready to support the campaign, and then finally, as I just mentioned, all the internal infrastructure required to support a bigger effort. And then here, headline overview for you of how campaigns typically evolve. So we're going to focus today on the getting ready, all the planning for a successful campaign. So your campaign starts way before the fundraising portion of your project. Then we call it testing plans. People call these planning studies, feasibility studies. But this is you have your plans. Now we're going to go and hear what our donors think of them. Based on that feedback, you refine your plans. You may phase. You may slim down your project. You may expand the project. You launch the campaign with your board gifts and your leadership gifts. And then you move into a bigger, major community gifts effort where at the end you're really inviting the entire community to participate. And as a result, however you define community and whatever community you serve, it has been strengthened because of your efforts. So we're going to focus again on just the getting ready before the study. I just want everybody to know that the slide deck will be available in audio too, so no need to take notes unless you want to.
So the first pillar that we're gonna address is the case for support. And just know that the heart of every campaign is a really strong, compelling case for support that's gonna really engage and intrigue your donor prospects. And it really describes your campaign promise. So a lot of this is the messaging that's going to be a part of your campaign. It's not necessarily a piece of collateral. It's not necessarily a brochure, but the messaging that's going to be consistent on your website about the campaign, in a major gift brochure, in your video. You want to make sure that the messaging is compelling and consistent so that people know when you're talking about your campaign. They hear it over and over, and it just provides some credibility and some confidence to the donor community. And the messaging is really positions your campaign from the donor's point of view. And I'll get into that in a minute. But it's really based on very thorough planning, which is why we're going to spend some time on this. You need to be able to tell your donor prospects what it is that the campaign will fund, so you need to be able to answer this question. and receive questions about that. Is it, again, it's the vision, but also what does that mean in practical terms in the square feet and the staffing, and what does this mean long-term for the organization? And how is this strategically part of your vision? Sometimes there are opportunities that come up, and that's great, but donors really want to know that this is part of an overall plan and vision for your organization. And what is the urgency now? Why now in a capital or programmatic initiative? Why is now important? What's the urgency that comes with me helping you now, or you all going ahead and moving forward now? And then how will the community, like Barb said, as ever you describe it, how will the community benefit from this campaign? What are going to be those outcomes that you expect in the greater community from the campaign? So in a perfect world, when you're doing your planning, everything you think and do is encompassed through the mission, vision, and values. And then from there, you do a strategic planning process in which you and the board decides what are your strategic priorities. And from the priorities, what are the plans that need to happen? What is it that we want to move forward in order to make those happen? And a lot of times it's a master plan for a capital campaign, but it can also be a business plan if it's through a business plan, if it's a programmatic initiative, and maybe it might even be the word is a sustainability plan if it's more of an endowment type of campaign. So from there, knowing the plans, what it is you want to do, you need to know how much it's going to cost. So you need to do the budgeting to figure out what it is you're going to do and how much is it going to cost. And donors may also want what we call a pro forma, which is a high-level finance plan over the next 5 to 10 years. So what does it mean long-term for your organization? Is there a revenue part that may come in? If not, are you going to sustain it through more fundraising? And what does that look like? And how are you going to boost your fundraising capabilities? So just know that there is, again, a lot of planning here. And through the budget, you need to know what your expenses are, and you also need to know what revenue sources you have available to make all this happen. One of which is your philanthropic goal. And so that's in the planning world, but we also know in the real world that Seattle right now is changing a lot. And the fact that the upzoning is happening and so much construction is happening, we're hearing a lot that our rent's going up 50% in 2020, or they're demolishing our building and we have to find somewhere else. There are a lot of changes going on, so a lot of times it's a little more frenetic than this very peaceful, strategic planning going on. You will still need to do all of that planning in order to move forward, but there may be more of a time issue.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about the campaign budget and also think about it as a project budget, because while your board members say we're in a campaign and here's what the campaign will cost, in fact, there can be multiple sources of revenue. What we want you to take home today is that if you are doing a capital campaign or even a campaign to grow endowment or program, there are other costs besides the hard and soft costs of a capital project. So here's what your campaign budget or project budget might look like. You might have a new facility or space, and it might be owned or leased. We're working with organizations now that are moving to new lease space. It could include program growth or a new program initiative, and you may want that in your budget either because that will never have a source of revenue and you need to scale up your philanthropy to support it, or it may be that you have a seed fund that you want to create and you need to have those funds as pledges come in. So it may be some sort of opportunity fund, and will be paid for 5 years from now that you need to put into your campaign budget dollars until the campaign budgets are built. And they include a flexible reserve. It could just be a savings reserve, whatever, if your organization doesn't have savings, or it could be a donor restricted endowment, but it could be some kind of reserve. And then we suggest that, and board members may resist this or not, the campaign expenses, the cost of the campaign, and it's not just collateral, staff, it's expertise, different kinds of expertise, can cost between 5 and 15% of your project goal, and it's usually higher if you have a leaner organization, because you may need a campaign manager, you may need more campaign consulting, but think 5 to 15%, and then short-term financing. If you are building something, if you're moving into a new lease space, that covers you again while pledges come in. And then your revenue sources could be reserves. We have organizations that have enough savings that they're drawing from the reserves to put their skin in the game for a project. It could be assets. We work with organizations that sell a building to actually be able to go to a different building. Government funding at all levels, city, county, state, and of course for some of you federal. Long-term debt financing, whether that's public or private, some kind of what you may think of as mortgage. And then finally, the campaign amount, the fundraising amount, which is the portion of your campaign that will come from philanthropy. There's organizations that it all comes from philanthropy, but usually it's a combination. And then we won't spend time on it today, but if you hear the language of a comprehensive campaign, the comprehensive campaign takes all of this and then takes 3 or 5 or however many years you choose of your operating support and rolls that into. And so all of their fundraising is included in that budget. So we just want you to take your temperature now. Thanks. And if you're online, again, know that the slides will be available, but we want you to think about and take home through organizations how ready you are. Yes, or you've got more to do. We can define what our campaign will fund. We've identified a budget for that we're going to fund. We can describe how the vision improves the community. We can explain to donors why this should be the top philanthropic priority now, it's urgent. And then you can articulate tangible benefits and outcomes to the community. The second pillar, as we talked about, is committed and prepared leadership. Your leadership should be prepared, they should be inspired, they should be committed to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work, and as Kate said, invigorating work of a campaign. They should know that they don't need to know everything, they don't need to know anything. They need to be open to learning, and they need to be proud of the legacy that they will create for your organization.
Hey, Barb, when things not picking up your voice well, some of will come on this side.
Shift my thinking, the other side of my brain. So, volunteer leadership. Headline for you is that volunteer and staff leaders make or break a campaign, and let's say they make the campaign. Here's what will ensure that they do so. First of all, make sure that your board is committed to the campaign vision. Now, you might think that boards, of course, the vision flows from them, but it's not always the case. We've worked with organizations where it was more staff-driven. And so the leadership really went through the process of all of the planning and vision making, and the board didn't disagree necessarily, but there just wasn't yet the opportunity for consensus around it, so that when it came time to the study, the board actually said, why are we testing this vision? We also worked with an organization that never really bought into the vision, but were so respected the founders of the organization, and it was their vision. So the board was willing to go along with it. They didn't really have ownership. Educate your board members so they understand their personal and collective campaign roles, because we wouldn't be surprised if those of you in the room or those of you listening today have boards that go, oh, someone else will do it. The community will support us. And look outside when they really will have specific roles as a collective in terms of their fiduciary responsibilities, but also as their individual roles as ambassadors and donors. Provide board members with,
Is that governance board, of course, foundation board or fundraising board, but is that governance board that you're saying the
Yeah.
response of the ownership?
both, yeah. Provide board members with education, tools, and resources. Now, of course, they may not know what they need, but they may have an idea, especially if you've never done a special campaign before. So we say, really, the easiest way to make sure they have what they need is ask them. And they may have a sense, they may say everything, but at least it's a start. And then make sure that they are investing in staffing to support the campaign. Usually in a feasibility study, there will be recommendations made about campaign staffing. We're really talking here about, do you have enough staff to even support the planning work? And then finally, for those folks who aren't on your board and they're not on your staff, but they are such inspiring and well-known and respected leaders in the organization, that they also will make up a small group of people who are tasked with developing their vision and their plans for it. So next readiness test, which is yes, or we have yet not yet. The board is committed to the campaign vision, they understand it, they think this is the right vision right now. Board members understand and are enthusiastic about their personal and collective campaign roles, open to learn if they don't know what those are. They have the information, tools, and resources they need to make campaign decisions, open to learning if they don't know what those are. The board is dedicating resources to staffing the campaign at least up front before they know more about what that staffing might look like. And you can identify just these other early champions for all the planning, visioning, and ultimately the campaign.
Good. Another pillar is that you absolutely need to have enough donors who are ready to give in a major way to a campaign. And the first thing I'm going to cover is what's different about annual giving than campaign giving. And annual giving is really, helps to sustain the organization. Usually they give annual, or they may give a multi-year, up to 3 years. It's ongoing, they're loyal donors. They're giving through their income, so they're writing a check or putting down a credit card. A lot of times it's transactional, it's one to many, we call it. So at an event, someone is asking and then many people are giving, or it could be a direct mail piece is the same way. It can be one decision maker in the family. It's not really big enough to have a family meeting in order to give that gift, and it's considered an annual contribution. So how campaign gifts differ is that they're, can be exponentially larger, and so they're transformational. They're transformational for the donor. Many have never given a gift as big as they did to a capital or a program initiative campaign. It can be a first of a lifetime big gift or a once in a lifetime gift. They're very many times multi-year pledges because people can give more if they're able to stretch over many years. It comes from assets, not necessarily their income. So many times they will be going to their financial planner to see what they can do, what's the best way that they can give the largest stretch gift they can. And one of the biggest differences is that the asking is peer-to-peer, and that's just really important for throughout most of the campaign, except for the very end, which is called the community campaign, which is a come one, come all, brick campaign, all of those things. Really, the asking needs to be peer-to-peer, and you need to know the donor to know what's going to inspire them to give one of these once-in-a-lifetime or first-in-a-lifetime gifts. And they're seeing it as an investment, and you're asking them for an investment in the organization, in the growth, in the community. So they are quite different in that way. Campaign gifts are going to be on donor time, and so it's really important, and we can't really emphasize this enough, to start including your donors in the planning process. if you want them to make these really large stretch gifts, that takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of investment on their part and a lot of just excitement and encouragement. And so early in the process, as you're doing the planning, start inviting top prospects into the planning process. Are you doing a strategic plan? Have them be, one of the couple of the stakeholders that you interview to talk about where you are now and where they think you should be, what they're seeing in the community, in the realm in which you're working. And then all top prospects, so it's a lot more than just the top 2 or 3 you think might be able to make some instrumental early gifts. Keep them informed as well. Treat them as insiders if you want them to join you on this journey. Definitely make sure that you identify your top 3 to 5 donors, and not just identify, and Barb and I are hearing this a lot as people are approaching us to help them with campaigns or feasibility studies. We ask a lot of questions, and we say, do you know your top prospects? And they say, yes. And I said, great, have you talked to them? Are they excited about the project? And they go, oh yeah, no, we haven't talked to them yet. So you can't necessarily launch a campaign with donors that don't understand where you're going and the role you want them to play. So keep them informed early, get them excited, get them in the planning process. Again, people love to give to big visions and growth. It's super exciting, but you need to bring them along with you in order to get their excitement up as well. And then for the study, generally in a study, the campaign consultants will interview your top donors. And one thing you don't want to happen is have the project introduced to the donor by a consultant. It should absolutely come from within the organization. So definitely before the study, you want to brief your top donors and top prospects as to what's going on and gauge their excitement. For some it may be like, yeah, this is great, I will join you on this journey, where can I help, what can I do? And for some it may be, I'm overcommitted the next 5 years, this isn't a high passion for me, I'll help you in other ways. And so you need to have those conversations early, honestly, to see really who are your top prospects. It's not just who you think, it's who's leaning in with you early in the process. And we'll talk more about the study at the end of the talk and what that entails. But again, here's your little quiz. How ready are you in terms of donors? Are your top prospects informed about your plans? If so, you're ready to move on. And we are engaging in ongoing conversations with major donors. So in order it's just a lot easier to start a campaign if you have a major donor program, if you're at least having conversations. And major, I don't mean by amount, but I mean you're having personal conversations with them and thanking them for their gifts and understanding who they are and what passions they have and why it is they give to your organization, because you're going to be having those throughout a campaign. So if people are used to having those conversations with you, it's just a lot easier to have those conversations on the annual level and then take it to the next level, which is to the capital campaign and having them along with you. And then does your donor community understand the difference their gifts make on an annual basis and in the organization? And a lot of that comes down to communication. Are they hearing from you on a regular basis the good work you're doing because of the gifts that they are giving? And they absolutely need that positive reinforcement that I'm important to the organization, my gifts makes a difference, and they're still doing good work.
Internal infrastructure, so this is the last pillar that we're going to be focusing on. And here's our headline that I want to modify, which is campaign activity requires a strong back of the shop. But we really mean front of the shop and back of the shop. We need to develop the shop that will support the campaign. So here's some of the key components for getting ready to do a core study. The first one is to identify additional staff capacity. And as I mentioned early, there will be recommendations made about increasing your staff for purposes of the campaign, likely through the study. And we're talking about even before, because if eventually there's a recommendation that you hire additional administrative support for your development director, for your executive director, or, and to have them spend more time on the campaign, or to hire a more visible campaign director who will build relationships with your donors and who may stay on as a major gifts officer as you have deeper relationships post-campaign. But there will be a lot of models for staffing. We're suggesting that right before the study, you do a couple things. That you do take the inventory of the existing skill sets that you have in your development shop, and if you're a shop of one or a small shop, throughout your administrative team. So who might be front-facing in a campaign? And then for the study itself, who will, and this sounds basic, but we are running into it frequently, who will staff the campaign planning study, the campaign feasibility study, because that brings together volunteers. It requires you to have interviews, surveys, and so literally, if you are a small development program, who will schedule the interviews with consultants, who will make sure that the agendas are in place for your campaign planning study committee when you assemble one. There's a lot of work to just manage the study process, and that's often not something that organizations have thought about in advance. And then cleaning your data and considering a well screen or prospect research tools is important too, because you will be interacting with donors in new ways and processing many more gifts. And so as you determine who are your top prospects, who are your next prospects, you want to make sure that you can find them in your database, that you can track that information, monitor it, and you can pull it out. So it's the time to do hygiene with your database. Establish procedures for donor management and gift processing that's related. Who will be entering that data? When, how, what fields will you populate on your donor database system? And then how will you acknowledge gifts? How will you enter them, acknowledge them, thank them? So those protocols that'll be required just more interaction with your donors. And then finally, many organizations that we work with have a gift acceptance policy. You really shouldn't be accepting a gift from a gift acceptance policy, but if you don't have one, readying for a campaign is the right time to do so. And this becomes especially important when you are securing larger gifts. So we've worked with campaigns where there was a donated piece of land. Although the donated piece of land was in an area of New Mexico that was not, it had never recovered from the recession. There was a donated painting, so in-kind gifts, real property. And so that will be, as you ask for larger investments, it's good to have in advance what your gift acceptance policies for anything, not just your campaign. Donor confidentiality policy, this is now the time. If you're considering building up a reserve, the time to have an investment policy in this. So those are just some of the headlines for what you can do to get ready more behind the scenes as all of you ready to spend more time with your donors. So here, how ready are you when it comes to infrastructure? The current staff roles and responsibilities are clearly defined, and that's to enable you to evaluate your skill sets and to look at who might be more involved in the campaign, certainly during the study process if you do one. Our donor database captures and tracks information about our donors, including all of our interactions with them. Of course, not all, but many of you know as professionals what's relevant. We have policies and procedures for accepting and acknowledging charitable contributions. They're written down. We often hear it's in someone's head or it's not consistent. And we have conducted a well screen in the past 3 years so that you know, you can identify who your top prospects are and who you should be spending time with even before your campaign. So we didn't do what probably some of you and some of you on the phone didn't talk about, which is the actual feasibility study, which is another topic, but we wanted to just have you thinking ahead so that when you have done the homework to get ready, here's just some thoughts for the planning study that are more specific. First of all, as we said, have your plans far enough that you could write the case for support that Kate referenced with your scope, with your components, and a preliminary budget to share. What you don't want to have when you do a study is we're listening to, for those of you who are on, watching through your computers, there's a siren going by. But what you don't want to have is your participants in the study saying, I would need to know more before I could possibly comment. You want the plans to be baked enough that they can tell you what excites them, what concerns them, and if it's a project that they might consider supporting, and at what level. And that's where Kate's reference to talking with your donors in advance comes in. But you want enough detail that they can respond to something concrete. Be able to identify enough informed prospects to have one-on-one interviews. So depending on the size and scale of your project, you may interview 20 people, you may interview 25 people, you may interview 30 people, but you really should have a list of about 50 to 75 people who know about your plans and would be willing to take that interview. So enough prospects so that you can get the data that you need as a result of the study. And then who are the 10 to 20 volunteer leaders that you want to bring into the study process, because it is absolutely the best way to, first of all, cultivate engagement and buy-in for your actual campaign plans. They have a sense of ownership, but also you are test driving whether they would make great campaign leaders. So this is a time to put on people that might be challenging, that are super invested, people that may not make a very large gift as you define it to the campaign, but they're community influencers. And then also who would be your top donors, and if they have the time, can they commit to a committee that may have 2 or 3 meetings most, but it'll help shape your campaign case that you take out, not the underlying plans, but how you position it, just to clarify. And they'll also help you identify who you should be talking to. And then finally, as I mentioned, just make sure that you have the staff bandwidth for the many extra duties that come for what we informed to vibrant process of study. Those are highly tactical, but they also can include encouraging someone to take it. So those are the 4, we think, headlines for ready. You've done your homework, your plans are in place, but what else do you need to do to ready for the actual study? Campaigns will take training, they take additional resources, they take some experimentation. Not everything works like it just like it doesn't work in your development programs. There's innovation, and we'll try things that are very successful, and we'll try other things that you'll take off the table. They take exploration, a lot of it about what people are interested in, who wants to be involved, and of course at what level they're interested in supporting the campaign. And they do take time, as we mentioned before, the campaign that your organization thinks will happen in a certain time frame likely will take longer, but you'll know after we've done this work, including going out and testing these early plans with your donors, exactly how much time. But it rarely, actually not rare. The campaign, I'll go further, the campaign that your organization thinks will happen, it will start in September and launch in March. You need the time to give your donor support, to do your homework, so that you take time. We've left plenty of time for questions. Let me know. Thank you, Austin, for coming through those folks that are on the phone, and then all of you.
So I'm really interested in the interview process with your top donors. Like, what specifically are you asking them during that? Like, are you asking much like, what do you think about this project? Or are you asking them like, are they interested? Or are you asking for specific?
Is this in the study, the interviews with the consultants?
The interviews with
The donors. The interviews during a study are usually done by consultants, so they're confidential because, like I said, there's a confidentiality there. People will say things to us as neutral parties that they won't necessarily say to you. And then we have done hundreds and hundreds of interviews, so we read body language, we can extrapolate more information when we see it's there. It's just a skill set that we have. So the one-on-one interviews, we never do a solicitation, and we make sure we say that up front. We also say up front that we will be asking if this is something that you might commit to and at what level. You're absolutely not committing to anything, but it helps us do an analysis of what we think the organization can raise. So that's where your top donors are really important, because